But your email comments on this damn steel mill, or that damn steel mill on Facebook, speak for themselves, and I think everyone here has read them. But hashtag shut it down. The steel mill is not now and will never again be a major employer of this town. I think your comments as a whole show that you, as the chairman of a quasi-judicial board, I believe you're bound by Canon 2 of the judicial canons, which says you should avoid any appearance of impropriety. Even if there is no impropriety, you should simply avoid that appearance. And I don't think there can be a clearer appearance, because the site that you're talking on is now required to put what it is about. And they say, this is Exhibit C to the motion, we oppose the steel mill reopening in the heart of Georgetown, South Carolina. Since the mill's closure, the pollution has stopped and everything is now green. So for those reasons, I would respectfully ask that you recuse yourself from this matter and hand the chair over to the vice chair. Thank you.
From there, I'm surprised to see a motion to recuse. I've never seen something like that before in a Board of Zoning Appeals hearing. I'm not quite sure what to make of it. I haven't had a chance to review it. If we're going to do a social media audit of all the Board of Zoning Appeals members, I would think that we would either need to do it for everybody or for nobody in order to have a fair proceeding, but we certainly do not object to Ms. Graves or anybody else participating. I don't think what people do on social media is particularly relevant.
Moving forward, we assume that you're not going to recuse yourself now?
I am not going to recuse myself.
That I've been improperly served a summons. It does not have the signatures that are required by a server. It also states proof of service that this summons was served to Carol Jayroe at 1134 North Fraser Street, Georgetown, South Carolina. It has my name on there, but it has no witness of when I was served, who the server was. So this is actually an improper document. So I'm here under my own free will. But you're a governing board. You should be careful how you send out documents, because you have to represent the city of Georgetown.
West End was redevelopment was part of what you campaigned on, correct? You want the West End redeveloped. Is that not part of your platform?
I want the West End and the entire city to be viable.
And to be viable, don't you think that all of these people here who are making a very good living and very, very tough times ought to and deserve a job if that steel mill, the rolling mill, is over there putting out production and keeping these people employed, their wives or spouses fed, their children in school? Don't you think that's important for this being a viable town?
Objective form, and I think this goes to her intent as an executive.
That's
So
not intent, it's just a question.
you're asking about her state of mind.
I'm asking her opinion. She's the mayor. I'm asking her opinion.
Sir, this is about the red ordinance, not about jobs at this point. Our job right now is to determine the red ordinance.
Who was the developer that you and Dr. Udici had a meeting with Mr. Moore over at Liberty that was set forth in what Dr. Udici filed with this Board of Zoning Appeals? And she said afterwards she sent over an email from a developer who was interested in buying the land or obtaining the land from the steel mill. Have you had conversations with the developer about purchasing the steel mill?
I've never had a conversation with the developer about purchasing the steel mill, any developer.
Do you know who Dr. Udici was talking about in that
I do
email?
not.
Dr. Udici, is the document that I just handed to you, what is the document I just handed to you?
It is the City of Georgetown business license for Liberty Steel.
Okay, what is the start date on that business license?
Effective date, May 16, 2021,
What is the end date on that document?
April 30th, 2022.
Has Liberty Steel, as of today, renewed its business license and been issued a business license past the expiration date on that document?
Not to my knowledge.
As the city administrator, as we sit here today, if Liberty Steel does not have a current business license, is Liberty Steel operating legally in the city of Georgetown?
I wouldn't say so.
This business license stuff, we submitted our information in April. The city has to calculate the amount to be paid. They have sat on it. And I think that's a sign of how horrible the foundation is for the decision y'all are being asked to make. The city has put you in a horrible position. This whole proceeding is just riddled with things that should make you cringe. What did the city do from the time that Dr. Udisi wrote Exhibit F? The city is proceeding accordingly with the February 1st, 2021 date till later, after there'd been a change in administration, when she then signs up Mr. Inglesi to come in and find a way to shut it down. I understand there are a lot of emotions and issues here that are outside of red. I perfectly understand that. People feel strongly, and that's good. You live in a community where people feel strongly and care about each other, okay? I think that's a wonderful thing. But I understand that there's a very narrow issue before you. And the question last time was, what about this Dr. Udisi letter? What about the letter of January 29, 2021? Dr. Udisi testified she sent it, she had the authority to send it, that she did not have to get a zoning administrator or anybody else to give her permission to accept that as the starting date. That was her testimony here. If there's any doubt, go back and look at the transcript. So the answer to your question is nothing happened in that year, sir. And that year is what controls, because if you go to Exhibit A of my exhibits, which is Mr. Inglesi's letter, he says, I do not view February 1st, 2021 as the commencement of discontinuance date for these reasons. I conclude the city administrator's January letter confirms that, the date the city administrator lacked the authority to issue a finding and binding ruling. You've heard the city administrator say to the contrary. There's too much stuff out there that has nothing to do with this. But
You know, the Board of Zoning Appeals is an nonpartisan, quasi-judicial body. While appointed by the City Council, we are a completely independent body whose job it is to determine whether current laws and ordinances are being applied correctly. Any party's claim that the board as a whole is a puppet of the council or the mill is completely unfounded. Our personal opinions as to whether the steel mill should be allowed to stay open or close are irrelevant. It's a dereliction of duty for any member of this board that thinks otherwise. I'm appalled at the behavior of both members of the board and supporters on both sides of this issue who selfishly look to forward their own agenda. I don't believe the city or the mill have acted in good faith. Both have used deceiving tactics and rhetoric to further their position. My personal belief is that liberty needs to go big or go home. Citizens of Georgetown have been jerked around for too long. The mill has opened and closed like a yo-yo over the past couple decades, and citizens are tired of broken promises. Under various owners, the mill hasn't provided the jobs they've led the community to believe they would. The mill's days are numbered if upgrades aren't done. Without a new furnace, we can't expect long-term operation. If the mill isn't going to make a major investment, I implore them to go ahead and abandon the property. For me, it all boils down to the letter sent on January 29, 2021. Liberty gave a date, previous to that they considered to be the shutdown date in which the clock started. The city responded and said, quote, the city is proceeding accordingly with the February 1st, 2021 date. The city can argue that the administrator didn't have the authority to write the letter, but the mayor and the city attorney were CC'd on the letter. The city waited approximately 1 year to contradict the agreed upon date. The city screwed up. They previously rezoned the property and passed up a golden opportunity to get rid of the steel mill for once and for all. Had the city challenged the date initially, any appeal that may have been made would have likely been denied. Given the circumstances and citing against my personal opinion and upholding the rules in place, I can only make a motion that Liberty's appeal be granted. And
Just to clarify, this is a motion to grant the appeal and fine for Liberty Steel. Am I correct?
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to comment that
in my opinion, the letter that was originally sent on April 22nd, which stated that the closing of the mill was the starting date of the closure. It doesn't matter whether a person writes a letter who's not qualified to write the letter, says, oh, we'll take another date. And to say you're going to use a future date as the start of not starting when you already are not operating is just ludicrous. That they said that the mill was going to start, we're going to use the start of the date that we're not operating on February 11th or whatever, and they had already been not operating for almost a year and a half.
She's the city administrator. She wrote the letter.
She wrote the letter, but she was not the zoning administrator, which in the red district says the information has to come from the zoning administrator.
You saying that the acting zoning director who's been on the job for a week has more power than the city administrator?
The red district agreement says that the Liberty has to communicate the start of non-operation goes to the zoning administrator, and that is the only person that can accept the date.
Well, Madam Chairman, the motion has been seconded, so we're ready for a vote.
I'll call for the motion. I'll call for the vote. No.
Yes.
Yes.
The mission has passed.